Good morning. This is a headline I didn't expect to see, and maybe I'm not following this area of endeavor closely enough, but the Toronto Star reports why LSD is poised for a comeback as treatment for substance abuse, anxiety, and depression. Does this make sense? Joining me, the co-founder and clinical director of The Farm in Stouffville, where they help people with their abuse issues and overcoming addictions, Yonah Budd. Good morning.
Good morning, Jerry.
My reaction this morning, Yonah, was I thought we were done with LSD after the Sgt. Pepper album.
Yeah, you and me both. But, you know, we've talked about this. We've talked about drawing at straws. This is just another opportunity for people to look at solutions for something that they're not handling properly, in my opinion. But, that's blowing my mind at the same time.
All right, well, and this is happening right here on 420, the day that cannabis enthusiasts celebrate their drug of choice. It was the day that they used to push for the legalization of marijuana. They finally have it. But, treating one drug with another drug is not that unusual. You're not a big fan of methadone, I don't think, but that's what it's for.
Yeah, 100%. And the idea of these psychedelics is to not provide for long-term use like you would, let's say, methadone or Suboxone, but to have a microdosed experience. In other words, a managed experience where somehow you find yourself some kind of spiritual, physical, emotional connection that helps you come out the other side. And a lot of people talk about it reprogramming your brain. But, in my experience, I've had patients try everything from LSD, mushrooms, ibogaine, ayahuasca, all that stuff. And from what I hear, maybe 20% do well, probably 50% doesn't really affect them one way or the other. And the balance have a really hard time with it after. A lot of bad stuff comes out of it afterwards. So I'm not a big fan, frankly.
Yeah, there's a big push, though. Now that marijuana has been legalized, I know there are people in the business of, first of all, monetizing the legalization of marijuana. And while they're at it, they're pushing for the legalization of psychedelics because they say that mushrooms, and I guess now I didn't know LSD was going to be added into it, that this is the path somehow to a sober future.
Well, it's definitely a path if it gets legalized. It's definitely a path to a lucrative business for whoever's in it. I think that's a solution. You don't hear about any hospitals in Canada doing this kind of testing. I know the ibogaine people have been knocking on the door in Ontario for the last couple of years. They came and spent some time with me at the farm, and we had some chats. Until you get government buy-in, until the government approves this as a means by which we can start doing research around testing it. It's just, there's a guy in Yorkville that has a mushroom-based microdosing business. A lovely young man. His last name is Levy. They have a nice business. They do well. And people, swear by the experience. In terms of it being the efficacy around it, I just don't see it in treatment. And I'm a big believer, as you know, in talk therapy and other methods of getting by your stuff.
I have a text message that reads, I've been taking mushrooms daily, microdosing, for about a year. My depression and anxiety are greatly diminished, and my sleep is better, and I'm off my big pharma meds as well. Well, he's using a substance to treat his symptoms. I guess that's why people drink. That's why people do drugs.
Yeah, I mean, and good luck to him, to your texter. I mean, if it works well and the guy's staying clean and sober off the bad stuff, great. I assume that maybe he's doing something that might kill him at some point. But you know what? It's if you're trading drugs, if you're trading, opioids for methadone or, alike, come up with a combination. If you're trading one for the other, there is a harm reduction benefit, right? So in other words, if microdosing under a doctor's care, if it gets to that, microdosing under a doctor's care, let's say with magic mushrooms, if that keeps you from killing yourself with fentanyl and alike, then yeah, I'm all for it. But as a means to get help, to actually get past the stuff that really bothers you deep down inside, I'm still not sold.
But you said on the mushrooms, and I guess people would say this with cannabis as well, if it's keeping you off the hard stuff, that's good. I thought, maybe I was misinformed, that LSD would come under the category of the hard stuff.
As far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I never
I would
touched
agree.
it when I was young. I didn't make all the responsible choices in the world, but there were drugs around that I just said, I don't think so.
And that was one of them, right? Me too. That was one of them. It's just there was something about the whole trip that people were going on that just scared me. That whole out-of-body experience didn't work, right? And remember, when we're talking about psychedelic mushrooms, ibogaine, ayahuasca, we're talking about stuff that, quote-unquote, grows in the ground. Same, too, with CBD and THC or marijuana, right? LSD is a manufactured chemical. That now changes the whole dynamic about it being organic, right? So the pitch on ibogaine, ayahuasca, and mushrooms has been, that the Aboriginal communities have been using it for, hundreds of years successfully. They have these sessions that are in sweat tents and so on, and it seems to give them a spiritual experience and help them see the other side of certain things in their life, they say. But we're not talking about treating depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, self-harm, that kind of stuff. We're not talking about that when you're looking at those experiences. Those are more spiritual, more religious experiences than they were for the purposes of mental health, based on what I've read.
Now, I'm talking to Yonah Budd from the farm. I got somebody who just wrote in challenging you here, says, well, you just love Big Pharma.
No, I don't. I'm against big pharma. As a matter of fact, I'd prefer my patients do talk therapy and swallow CBD to get by what they got to do. But I'm totally against big pharma. That's why I don't have a relationship with psychiatrists. As much as they do a great job, if I send one of my patients to a psychiatrist, they're coming home with medication. And so I counter your texter by telling him he absolutely knows nothing about me, because clearly that's not me.
Okay, and to your point there where you said, look, the mushrooms are something that grows, cannabis grows. There are things that grow that can kill you.
Absolutely. Listen, you can have a really bad experience on mushrooms and end up wanting to kill yourself, right? So same with ibogaine or ayahuasca. That's why in the onset I said this stuff has to be managed under proper care. And in the Aboriginal communities, it's done under the care of local medicine men, so to speak. I'm not using the right term, but people who have been experienced with it for years and years and years. But in Mexico, which is where everybody's going now for ibogaine, they at least have a medical team. Costs $30,000 to go there for a week, but they have a medical team, and that's where you have your ibogaine experience. But unless it's guided, unless it's supported by someone who knows what they're doing, and in my case, I would prefer actually demand that there be a doctor or nurse practitioner on site. They're all dangerous, because if you have a bad trip, that can spin you way out of control, right?
So the headline that we started on this is in the Toronto Star: why LSD is poised for a comeback as treatment for substance abuse, anxiety, and depression. Despite what you might think, Yonah, or anyone else might think, do you think that the Star is on track here, saying this is something that's going to happen more, whether Yonah Budd likes it or not?
I'm not sure how to respond to that. I would suggest that we're grabbing at straws, right? We're trying to find solutions to what's out of control right now, which is a whole country under horrible mental health, all the way from young kids up to seniors, right? So I think we're looking at all kinds of solutions, and there are people out there that are pushing for these other forms of treatment, frankly, as a means by which, like the ibogaine guys, for example, before they even had any kind of medical approval, they're already a public company looking to raise money. Right. So, I've seen a lot of scams and shams around this type of treatment, and I'm not so sure LSD is not going to be the next one. And why did the Star pick it up? Because they report stuff, right?
I'm not criticizing the Star. I'm just saying that they may have picked up on something that is going to happen. There were people who never thought marijuana would be legalized. Well, it is. And it's going to get legalized in the United States eventually as well.
Yeah, and we're also going to see, I think, whether you and I like it or not, and I know we've talked about it, we're going to see the decriminalization of major street drugs here pretty soon too. I would suggest. But right. in the U.S., and I know you spend time there. There are clinics that allow you to do these guided, supervised microdosing experiences. But there are also clinics that use heroin to help you come off heroin.
Well, we may be talking about this more in the future, so I appreciate it. Yonah Budd of The Farm, good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. Take care.
Can political opposites be friends? I'll tell you why I ask, and we can talk about our personal experiences coming up on iHeartRadio Talk Network. It's 11:45. News Talk 1010 Time Saver Traffic.